back in 1998 at a local music shop where I bought my first drum kit. And I had a choice between a Tama, Rockstar, and an old Gretsch kit from the 80s with square-sized badges, so the Jasper shells. However, that Gretsch kit was not in a very good shape, actually, and there was a lot of things to do, and back then I actually had no idea how to do it. So I went with the Tama drum instead. Then I think back in 2013, I grabbed an old Premier Soundwave kit from 1981, I think, concert tom kit on eBay for bargain price, and actually that's where the addiction started to grow, and it still grows, and it's still growing. Yeah, this is an old Hayman kit from 73, 74 transition area, because it has silver badges on the 12-inch tom, on the 13-inch tom, and on the bass drum as well, and on the snare drum, which is sitting in the shelf behind me. And the 16-inch tom has a gold badge, which means that it was built earlier. Yeah, great drum set, incredible sound, and it's sound like not that vintage. It actually sounds quite modern to me, because the shells are really, really loud. They cut very well, they project very well, because with vintage drums you always get those more woody tone. But it's not the case with Hayman sets, I think, in general. Sizes of the kit, that's 12 by 8, 13 by 9, 16 by 16, 22 by 14 bass drum. As it's always the case with Hayman, the shells, the interior of the shells are lacquered with that vibrasonic coating. Actually, I don't know what it is, what they used back then. It's very, very thick. And that leads to that more beefier and media, cuttier sound, which is quite typical for Hayman drums and Hayman shells in general. Hardware of the kit, it's all original. You get I also got those strange tom holder here, which is famously known as the knuckle crusher. Actually quite strange, very, very complicated. I actually have no clue what they thought about when they designed it. It's still a riddle to me, and still confusing, and still baffles me every day. It works, however, that's the main thing, and all original, which is not always the case with Hayman kits. Okay, snares I'm most proud of. Quite a few actually. However, that one here is special, which is a 14 by 8 Noble and Cooley solid maple snare from 1987. As some of you may know, 14 by 8 Noble and Cooleys are actually very, very rare. It took me a long time to find one. Really very, very, very long time. First wanted to have one when I saw a Phil Collins play one at the Live at Wembley show. And I wasn't looking for it for, I think, around 8 years or so, till I finally had the chance to find a used one for a decent price. And yeah, great to have it. As with all of my drums, I do use Aquarian drum heads extensively. Also in that Hayman kit here, we do have the oversized texture-coated vintage models. Even though I'm a heavy hitter, I prefer single-ply heads. On snare drums, I mostly use the texture-coated with that power dot. It has a nice controlled sound to me. I don't need any dampening at all. It sounds quite open, still rings. That's the sound I really want to. And yeah, I mean, as always with the Noble and Cooley, the drum shell consists of one ply. So it's a steam bent solid maple shell with re-rings. And it sounds absolutely fantastic. Has a really nice, warm, deep, cracky sound. It cuts very well. Also has die-cast hoops. There's original Noble and Cooley die-cast hoops, actually. I do use a 42 snare wires on it, simply because I like 42 strand wires. Makes the sound a tad more fatter, and even though a bit more controlled. But that's the sound I'm looking for. I know that many of you may now say, okay, that's probably a bit too much, but not on this snare. It sounds really fantastic. Okay, next one. Yeah, real classic. That's a Ludwig Black Beauty from, I think, 1980, around 1980. It has the rounded badge already, not a pointed one. Yeah, it's a seamless brass shell, equipped with again, Aquarian texture coated with power dot and the Aquarian Classic Clear. On that one, I do use a 20 strand wire. Sounds best to me. Also tried a wider one in it, however, didn't like it that much on that one. Sound of it, yeah, it sounds absolutely phenomenal. Very warm, very controlled, however, incredibly loud. Incredibly cracking, and that's probably the snare that is my to-go studio snare. So if I record or if I go to a session, or if I record a track in the studio, that's probably the drum I use most. Okay, difference between the old Black Beauty and new Black Beauty. Old Black Beauties definitely sound a lot better. I also heard modern Black Beauties. Also had a chance to play one. However, to me they sounded quite tinny and cheaper. May sound a bit strange now, but actually I did not like the sound that much. It sounded thinner and more clingy to me, and it doesn't have that robust thick sound that you get when you play an old one. I know they're heavily expensive. I know they're extremely rare. However, if you have the chance to grab one from the 70s, and if you have the money, then I definitely recommend you to get one. Okay, number 3. Also a rare beast here. That's a Los Angeles 14 by 6.5, 10 lug Camco Aristocrat wooden shell snare drum. As some of the vintage geeks may know, there are 3 areas of Camco. Oakland, then it was sold to Chanute, then it was sold to Los Angeles. And there are a lot of discussion on Facebook groups which era sounds best. To me, it's Los Angeles. Why? I like the way they sound simply because the shell of the Los Angeles wooden shells are quite undersized. So they have a bit more of a, timpani sound, bit more mid-focused. Also incredible good snare drum. Sounds unlike every other wooden shell snare that I have, actually. It sounds tad more aggressive, more, as I said before, more mid-sounding. Also a nice recording snare because it doesn't ring that much, actually. Yeah, get a nice, fat, sharp crack out of it if you want to. That snare is equipped with a Aquarian texture coated, without a dot, and a classic clear. Canopus snare wires, 20 strands. It's actually, I think it's the vintage dry, I think. I do use the original Camco strainer. I know many people get nightmares when they think of it. Many Camco players get nightmares. However, I had the chance to repair it and to make it flawlessly working because I built some new parts for it. If you're interested, if you may watch this and if you're interested in how I did this, feel free to contact me anytime. So that I can use it on every studio gig, on every live gig. And it's a working horse, basically. And it's a lot of fun to play. Okay, number 4. That's a Ludwig standard snare drum. The special thing with Ludwig standards is actually the fact that the shell is exactly the same as on the legendary Jazz Fest snare drums, which are way more expensive. So basically, when you buy a Ludwig standard wooden shell snare drum, you get a Jazz Fest, but they're a lot cheaper to get. They sound very, very nice for the price range, actually. Also, a bit of a warmer sounding, probably a bit wetter sounding snare drum. So if you want to know how Jazz Fest sounds, then listen to some Beatles Ringo records. It's equipped with an Aquarian texture coated power dot head, classic clear on the bottom. Snare wires are handmade snare wires by Beepin. If you have the chance to check them out, do it. I highly recommend them. Handmade, 20 strands, all original on that one. I also like the P83 throw-off. Works flawlessly, which is not always the case with Ludwig throw-offs, as you may know, because the P85 actually is not that good, but that's a different thing. So if I have the chance to get one, highly recommend them, because you can get them for really cheap money.